this is Laura from All Over the Place, and this is an update on my last spin. As you remember, in the last video I did a fiber dyeing, did merino roving with Easter dye, and I went a bit crazy with the colors. I didn't know how they would blend. You can see a picture here on the side with the roving before I spun it. I did a fractal spin, meaning I split the roving in 3 parts. I tried to make it as equal as possible. So the first, I kept it intact and spun it from one end to the other. The second single, I split the roving in 2 and put them beginning to end and spin that. And the third one, I split it obviously in 3 and did a single also. And this here is the skein that came up from that bat. The colors blended fairly well. I got a good consistency of the yarn. It's probably a DK weight. I haven't done a reps per inch so far. And this is an entire skein. It weighs 240 grams, and from my measurements I have 469 meters. I arranged this skein pretty so I can present it to you, but I'm gonna open it so you will see all the fiber. What I got, because I didn't split my roving properly, at the end I had to do, from one of the singles, I had to do chain ply, and there I got these strands that are one color because obviously they kept the color. So I got a few strands that are one single color. I don't know when I'm gonna need it. If this will bother me, I will probably cut it out. You can see here the where I did the chain ply. And other than that, the yarn is very airy, very soft. This merino roving that I am using is a 23 micron, and it's pretty crazy, but because of the white and everything else, they got really well blended. And since I have this skein, I decided to do a companion for this that I'm gonna be using with this yarn. And you can see the roving here. And for this roving, I decided to do a different kind of fractal. I did split the roving in 9 equal parts, and I spun them a bit differently. I mean, I took one of the roving, the 9th roving, so let's say this is a piece of the roving from one end to the other, and what I did is I joined the 2 ends and spun like this, so I would get a single yarn with a more barber poling than if you would spin end to end. And what I did is I did one piece like this, and the other one I started from the other end. And for the other singles, I started with this end, the plied end, and ended up with this one. and because I wanted to mix it up and try something else, and obviously because of the colors of the roving that you see here on the side. The yarn is this one, and the main color is green, obviously, because you remember I'm a bit with a green and blue, so I think it will go very well with this one. The colors are very complementary, and this is also giant skein. It's a 240 grams, and I calculated the yardage, and since this one is also a DK weight, it's not gonna be enough combined with this one for a full-size sweater, so I might need to dye a bit more fiber. I don't know, maybe I will use something else. I shall see. And this one is still not properly dried yet, because I just finished it yesterday evening. And this is the skein opened up, and even with this let's say random fractal, I still ended up with one strand which is pure yellow. Hope it will not bother me, but what I liked from this type of fractal is, let's see, I'm trying to find out a strand that has barber pulling, singles, mixed. Yeah, I should have done that earlier probably, but it's something like you see here, so it has a more speckled look overall when you do barber pulling over barber pulling, and it blends the fiber better, because as you saw the roving, it had distinct colors of blue, greens and turquoise and a bit of gray mixed. And since I did this barber pulling singles, the fibers got more blended. It's fairly similar in colors with the 2-ply spin that I did first. Let me grab it because I think I have it around here. Okay. Yeah, here it is. It's fairly similar to this one, except for the fact that the blues are not so obvious. Obviously this is a bit more chunkier, but I figured that I got the greens and blues out of my system with these skeins, because they're fairly large, at least for the wool roving. The blues are not so obvious in here, and I hope to attempt other things in terms of colors. So a bit more about fiber dyeing now. If you remember, in the last video I told you that I would attempt 5 skein fade. I'm planning for a project, a fingering weight sweater that I would like to fade from a lighter color to a more darker color. And I browsed the internet and I found a fade set from SweetGeorgia yarns. You can see the picture here. And since I'm into green, I figured, well, let's go for a bit more green. And if you remember, in the last video I told you that I do have a bit of a background with the color. However, with fiber, obviously it's not the same as with mixing colors when painting. And I'm gonna show you now, no, recap. So what I did is I took my yarn and I wound them into a skein, about 75 grams, because I knew that the fingering weight that I'm gonna be needing for a size, for a sweater my size, would not be a 500 gram quantity. So I did a 75 gram skeins, and I went boldly, attempting a fade like the picture with this that I saw from SweetGeorgia yarns. And needless to say that it didn't go according to plan. And once I realized my mistake, I didn't want to leave the yarn standing in my cupboard, because if I know myself, I know that it will probably take 5 to 10 years before I stumble upon it and decide to do something with it. So as you can see here, I am wearing my City Limits sweater by Tennis Lovely that I showed you in my introduction video, and I told you I'm okay with the fit, but I would have preferred a larger one. So since I already had this pattern, and in the pattern it called for 2 strands of fingering weight yarn held together, I decided to cast on another version of this, but a bigger size, and to use all the fiber that I messed up dyeing wrongly. And I'm gonna show you first one of the colors that I achieved, and I'm obviously not in love with it, is this neon green, which was supposed to be lime, but obviously is not. This is all I've got left. I have 2 nephews from my sister's children. I have 2 other sisters. I'm the older one. So I probably will use this with a bit of blue and make something for them, either a hat or a scarf, who knows. But let me show you the cast on. It's still in progress, but I did quite a large portion of it. Still have 1 sleeve to do. So this is what I did. Initially, for my inspiration of fade, I planned to use this, basically this one, as a lighter color. This one would be the second, this would be the third, and the fourth would be this one with the blue blend. But these colors, they do look good on me, but it's a bit too bright for my taste. And I decided that since these were fingering weight, they would not be enough for a sweater this size. So I decided to use some undyed wool on the top and then start fading with the other colors. And at the end, I did add in some commercial bought peacock blue, which I had left from another project. And this sleeve is already done, and I still have a bit on this one. I will use up all the fiber that I dyed. In the end, the project is fairly bright, and I do like it, even if it wasn't intended for this. But as you can see, these colors are not similar to the ones I saw in my inspiration for the SweetGeorgia yarn. And being me, I decided to do it again, but this time pay attention to recipes and the color and so on. I didn't felt the yarn, although I did kettle dye. So I was confident that I could replicate what I saw in the picture, because I really had project in mind for the yarn that I was going to dye. And now let me show you what I have accomplished. So this is my fade set, which finally is similar to the one that I saw in my inspiration picture from SweetGeorgia yarns. As you can see, this is a light butter color. This is a light, I don't know the names of the colors that the people from SweetGeorgia yarns they were calling them, but this is definitely a lime. I don't know, this one maybe it was a pistachio maybe, and this is a forest green. What I used for these to achieve this fade set is all acid dye from jacquard, and I used only turquoise and sun yellow for the main color. But if you look closely here, this is also how shall I call it, gradient within itself, not gradient but a tonal, yes, a tonal yarn, except for this buttery yellow. Even this, the other fours, they all have some degree of glazing with jet black. I'm gonna remove, for example, this one. As you can see here, it has a bit of tone with the from the glazing with the jet black. This one as well, but it's fairly subtle here with this light gray. And this one, at first I wanted to keep the color like this, but it was a bit too bright, so I decided to add also a bit of black glazing. And this one, it was looking a bit too dull with the color being one tone. Was actually about this color, sorry, when I started with it. So I did also a glazing with black, but I varied the proportion of black obviously according to the color of the yarn. And I did measure, I wrote down a recipe so I would be able to reproduce this color if by some accident I need more for my project. But this one, finally, it is, sorry, it is what I expected for a tonal yarn and a fade set. I didn't stay away from green, as you can see, but the end result is very pleasing. And for the pattern that I'm gonna compose for this fade, I think it will look very, very good. What I used in terms of, let's say, the glazing, for example. So I did dye a solid yarn, and while the yarn was still wet and the water was still hot in the pot, I picked up several dilutions of 1% jet black from jacquard, and I did a few drops all over the rim, and then mixed a bit, and then another one, and so on. So I added the black gradually. I didn't do a dye bath of a certain percentage of black and dunk the yarn. No, I left the yarn in the pot and then added a few drops and stir, and also intentionally kept some pieces to their original color. And as you can see here on this lime, there are also lighter patches, just because I didn't submerge completely the yarn in the pot. For each skein of 75 grams, I used about 8 cups of water in a 5-liter pot and 2 tablespoons of acid. So yes, this is my fade set. I'm very pleased with it. I can't wait to start the new project with it. I wanted to get this video out of the way because I need to cake these so I can make them manageable for knitting. Since they are fingering weight, I'll probably be using a 2.5 millimeter needles, but this will be a new project that I'm gonna make for this one. So overall, I am pleased with what I achieved, but contrary to what I thought at the beginning, yarn dyeing is not the same when you mix regular paints for watercolor painting, for example, because fiber does react differently, and also there are things into consideration, like not necessarily the heat but the amount of acid that you have. All of these, I know that the SweetGeorgia yarn had superwash wool mixed with nylon in their listing, but all these are non-superwash, so I think I achieved a pretty similar look, even though this is a bit more difficult to manage because the dye takes longer to react, and you have to take into consideration this. So I have a bit more fiber dyeing later on, but that will be for another project. So I hope you get inspired by my fade set and maybe, who knows, attempt one yourself. But make sure that you write down your recipe, even if it might be a total disaster, because then at least you know what to avoid in the future. Since if you didn't like it, the end result, you can tweak the recipe until you like it. Also, keep in mind that even this color, for example, here was looking very much neon, like, well, where's the other one? Was looking very much like this one, but I did manage to tone it down with a bit more yellow, and in the end, since I didn't like it that much, glazing with a little bit of black or gray will do wonders, especially for if you are attempting a tonal yarn like this one. You can see that this main color would have been a very dull one, but this black glazing creates a lot of depth and shade, and also for this lime one. I'll see how these will knit up. And another thing, that if you write your recipe down and you like it, then you will be able to play up from there in order to create a different shade by adding different other colors. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy my fade set. Thank you. Bye.